Are you enjoying the responsibility that you now have in this situation?
I don't know if I'd say I enjoy it. I'm in the right or wrong place at the right or wrong time. You've got to do your job, and you've got to do your duty. In one sense, I prepared for it in my entire life because my motivation in getting involved in politics, going back to when I was 12 years old, was protecting civil liberties. And I remember reading newspaper stories when I was 11 or 12, about Supreme Court decisions that infuriated me, upholding convictions based on confessions that were physically beaten out of prisoners. I remember getting very angry and saying, I have to do something about this.
There are some people who believe that Trump is trying to goad the Congress into impeaching him because he thinks he will get a political benefit from that. There are others who think he's just an impulsive person who acts the way he acts.
I think it's largely more the second than the first. I think he is very impulsive. I think he's very willful. And I think he's very ignorant. I mean, it's unlike Richard Nixon, who knew exactly what he was doing when he was violating the law and violating norms and so forth. He just goes ahead. He doesn't know what the law is. He doesn't know what the constitutional history is. He doesn't know the implications of half of what he does.
Well, so do you agree with Speaker Pelosi, who said the other day that he is self-impeaching by his conduct, making it impossible for you to avoid that?
He's making it increasingly difficult. No questions are being answered about any subject. And then when subpoenas are issued, he has a blanket command to disobey all subpoenas. Nobody should testify and nobody should give documents to Congress. Well, that's a way of neutering Congress, of making sure Congress can't do its job, of turning the country into a dictatorship, of a monarchical president.
That's why you call it a constitutional crisis.
Yes.
He ridiculed that idea, said that you guys were just putting on a show and rallying your political base. How do you advance your position, which is an abstraction, constitutional crisis? People can't see it. When the president says 3.2% economic growth in the first quarter, what are you talking about? I'm making people's lives better. The idea of a constitutional crisis is not something people can see, feel, or touch.
That's right. But, you know, we fought a revolutionary war over that. It affects people's lives ultimately. And the fact, I mean, whether the president is doing a good job on the economy or not is one question. He may be. But if he is destroying all the norms and destroying all the practices and destroying the laws and arrogating all power to the presidency so that the people through Congress have nothing to say, that's a very different crisis. That's a constitutional.
Is that an argument that you can make the American people see and understand and accept?
I think so. I mean, we have to hold hearings and we have to get people to testify, and not just on, you know, collusion with the Russians and obstruction of justice, but on all kinds of issues where they're refusing to. We can't get information about the family separation policy of the board, about tearing kids out of people's arms.
If there's a larger issue about him and his conduct, what is it?
Well, you got three issues really. But there were tons of evidence that they knew the Russians were interfering in the election on their behalf. They welcomed it, they wanted it, and they tried, and they coordinated with it. And the second clear conclusion is there are 12 episodes of obstruction of justice. Beyond all that is the basic question, because the administration doesn't want this information, because they want all information kept, they are refusing all subpoenas. They're telling private parties don't give information to Congress. They're trying to say that Congress, representing the American people, can't get information and therefore can't function. The effect of that, whether the president realizes it or not, I don't know, but the effect of that is to make the president a monarch, it's to make him a dictator. That is the biggest constitutional crisis, and that's what we've got to fight.
Do you believe, in fact, that the president is compromised by Russia?
Trump was saying throughout the campaign I have no dealings in Russia. I have no dealings of whatever kind. We now know that, in fact, they were negotiating for Trump Tower in Moscow right till the end of the campaign. Okay, Putin knew this. Putin knew that they were having these negotiations. He knew that Trump was lying to the American people about it, and that gave him leverage because he could have revealed that during the campaign. Okay, whether there is leverage now, I don't know.
There was a poll that was done recently in which a solid majority of Americans said they believed that before he was president, President Trump committed crimes. Are you one of the people
Before he was president?
Before he was president, committed crimes. Are you one of the people who believes that?
He may have, I don't know. I just think, well, he admitted...
Is that relevant to that belief in the period that led to the presidency? Is that relevant?
A president can be impeached only for two things. Only for misuse of presidential power while president, or for cheating in the election that gave him the presidency. Other than that, if he did something terrible before he was president, he robbed a bank, that's not impeachable. It's a crime, it's not impeachable. There may be crimes that are not impeachable, and impeachable offenses don't have to be crimes. They're different tests. It's not that one is more severe than the other, they're simply different tests. So, for example, I said at the time, and I'll say it again now, I believe that perjury regarding a private sexual affair by the president is a crime, but it's not an impeachable offense because it doesn't threaten the structure of government, it doesn't aggregatize power, etc. So if Donald Trump, for instance, committed perjury about some real estate deal in Manhattan, that would not be an impeachable offense.
Do you believe he's committed crimes while in office?
Yes, I do believe that.
You do believe he's committed crimes while in office?
I do believe. Mueller lays out very strong evidence of a number of obstructions of justice. Those are crimes. Yes, of course he did.
And I wonder, in the case of your party, if the larger idea is that Democrats think that Donald Trump is a con man and that they are justified in finding ways to, grounds to get a con man out of
I don't know what anybody else may think, but I would very much oppose that point of view. Donald Trump is a con man. He's thoroughly dishonest. He lies all the time. We know that. None of those are grounds for impeachment. They're grounds for defeating him for re-election. They're grounds for why he shouldn't have been elected in the first place, but that's up to the American people. Impeachment is a weapon or a tool to protect the functioning of government and to protect liberty and to protect the structure of government.
When you say the question of impeachment is down the road, which your colleagues say and Speaker Pelosi says as well, does it need to be this calendar year or not at all?
When I say it's down the road, I don't mean just in terms of time. I mean, it depends what comes out.
Yeah.
It depends what we learn. It depends where the American people are as to whether we want to go that way or not. I don't want to make it sound as if we're heading for impeachment.
Yeah.
Probably we're not.
You really believe that? Probably we're not?
Probably, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I say, it's just...
Because what I hear from your colleagues is the reverse. Probably we are, but not yet.
Maybe. It's hard. I don't know.
I had lunch the other day with Bill Cohen, who, as you know, was a young congressman during the Nixon impeachment process. Yes. He said that he thinks that Trump deserves impeachment and that, in fact, what we're seeing now from Trump and his administration are worse than anything Nixon ever did. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Nixon never posed the kind of existential challenge to the separation of powers and to limited government that Trump does.
President Trump and some conservatives, Republicans say that the media, the social media companies, the deep state are suppressing or constraining the civil liberties of conservatives or Republicans or President Trump.
Well, I think that's nonsense. Do I believe that what we're doing is supporting civil liberties? Yes. I mean, they're going off on nonsensical quests, Lindsey Graham and Jordan. What's the origin of the investigation? Did it start with the Steele dossier? We know what the origin did. It wasn't the Steele dossier and so forth. And even, by the way, if the origin wasn't good, which it was, but even if it hadn't been, look what it found. It found, and that's the issue, what it found. And it found the Russians making a concerted effort to rig an American election, and various people in the United States supporting that, and then trying to cover it up. That's the issue.
Lessons from Peter Rodino or Henry Hyde?
Yeah, I don't remember in detail about Rodino, except he presided with dignity and fairness, and he was reluctant to do it. In fact, the story is that when the committee voted to impeach the president, he went into his office and cried, even though he had helped engineer the vote.
That happens? Are you going to go in your office and cry?
I don't think I'll cry, not that emotional, but no. What I'm looking for is, I mean, he was crying presumably that it was necessary.
Right.
If it is necessary, you got to do it. We have to protect the Constitution and protect a democratic form of government. That is overwhelming.
What about Henry Hyde?
If we succeed in doing that, maybe I'll cry out of happiness, but not Henry Hyde. I think he lost perspective.
Now, one thing you said during that impeachment process was that an impeachment lacks legitimacy if it's done by only one party. If you have no Republican member of Congress supporting it, does that mean it can't happen?
When you start the inquiry, you know what the evidence is, or you should know enough of the evidence. Otherwise, you shouldn't start the inquiry. But if you think that the evidence is so stark about deeds so terrible that by the end of the inquiry, when it's laid out, then you'll have some Republican support unimpeachable, then you can do it.
Are you concerned with, and should you be concerned with, the electoral impact of what you're doing?
If you're going to do anything, you need the votes of people from districts not like mine, as well as mine, so obviously you have to take account of it. But again, the ultimate measuring rod is saving liberty.
What about financial impacts? Your district encompasses Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
If you thought that the turmoil of an impeachment process was going to be damaging to the American economy, would that be a reason to shy away from it?
The American economy is very large and very resilient. But number two, no, that would not be a reason. I suppose if you thought it was going to cause a major depression like the 30s, you'd have to think of that, but that's not real.
Would censure of the president be an effective remedy for a constitutional crisis or violation as you would see it?
I don't know. I'm skeptical personally of censure.
Why?
Because I don't know that it means much anymore. It was done once in American history when Andrew Jackson was censured in 1830 or 31. And then it meant something. It meant a lot. It meant so much that he was infuriated. And when the Democrats, he was a Democrat, when the Democrats took control of Congress, he made sure they expunged the censure resolution. But that was in the era of duels. That was in the era when someone insulted you, you took him to a duel, you shot him and weehawked it. Today, I'm not sure anybody would care about a censure resolution one way or the other. They'd laugh it off.
Do you think if the president were impeached by the House and acquitted by the Senate, it would boost his re-election prospects?
It might very well.
And would that be a reason not to do it?
Be a consideration, certainly.
As I listen to you and listen to other members of your party and think about how you assess the current situation, it feels to me as if politics is now the only reason for you not to impeach the president.
Oh.
Is that where we are?
No. The major reason, certainly a major non-political reason not to impeach the president, was if he thought it would tear the country apart.
Do you have any autonomy in that decision, or is that really the Speaker's call?
Well, it's neither's. I mean, if we were going to consider that, I'm sure a lot of people would have been put into that decision. Mm-hmm. Everybody's independently elected. Everybody has to get independently re-elected. And the Speaker is not a tyrant, nor does she want to be. And decisions are made by consensus, I suppose. I mean, now she's a very dominant leader. She gets her way a lot because she's persuasive, and because she's logical in terms of what she's supporting in the first place. But she has to listen to the caucus, as do we all.